Today's episode of the Mind Sculptors podcast is brought to you by TCG Player, your source for all your trading card game needs. Please consider using our link in the description for your next purchase, as it helps support the continued refinement of our show. This episode is also made possible through the gracious support of our Patreon members. If you wish to join this esteemed group, simply visit patreon.com/The Mind Sculptors and become part of the SCULPTY family today. And of course, if you prefer a simpler gesture, we invite you to subscribe, leave a like and comment on YouTube, or leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as a most fitting offering to the ever-watchful algorithm Jesus.
So a couple things. One, Dragon Age Veilguard came out this past Thursday, and it has consumed my life.
As every new video game does.
Well, okay.
Of a very specific niche.
I like single player RPGs a lot.
Yeah. This we have come to know.
Yeah. But it has been very good. Just everybody who remembers my replaying of Dragon Age Inquisition just like a couple years ago, this is I love Dragon Age. Dragon Age is like probably one of my favorite fantasy franchises, but
I played them at some point, but definitely not in a way where like I invested emotional or intellectual sort of weight to it.
I am like the dark demographic for BioWare games. Like I am the prime demographic for their games. So,
right.
I eat up their stuff. Like no big deal. The second thing is we hit our subscriber goal.
Woo! 10K, baby.
We are at 10,043 subscribers.
Wow. All right,
so,
y'all a little above and beyond. I love that.
Yeah. So if you thank you so much for everybody who helped us hit that 10,000 subscriber goal. We got there before December, which is really exciting because I wasn't sure if we would even get there before January. But we did, and it's awesome. So thank you to everybody who subscribed and keep on subscribing. We appreciate it. But that's how I'm introing the Mind Sculptors podcast this week. I'm your host, Cal.
Hi, I'm your other host, Ian.
Yeah. And you haven't had to re-record anything in the past 24 hours at all, right? It's all just been fresh, one shot, one take.
Yes.
No problems.
I definitely have not been bogged down in recording land all this past 24 hours for sure. That would be crazy.
Yeah. Ian's video that came out last week had one of the most bizarre the only way I can describe it is that the video was doing what like a video game when your computer is like struggling to run it just starts chugging and losing frames, and it was just I've never seen anything like that before.
I also have not. I think I had adjusted some settings to try and adjust the video quality, and I think it may have just made the whole thing shit the bed. So that was
it was truly strange. I was like sitting here editing and I was just like, what the fuck?
Yep.
So this week we are doing our foundations and other assorted foundations set review.
Foundations plus Foundations Jumpstart.
I'm actually really cool. Like this set looks really cool. I'm not gonna lie. I actually was more into this set than I thought I was going to be going into it.
I am very into the card design that they did for the Jumpstarts. Like I think all of the Jumpstart legends were really, really fun. They're clever. They're a little silly. They're a little wacky, a little zany, which is not normally like, like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, right? But like they'll kind of have a fun thing going on. We're not going to see a lot of, like, this isn't a Modern Horizons set, right? Like, this is literally a set designed to introduce people to Magic the Gathering, right? So,
To
like,
be a core set, right?
yeah, basically, this is not only like a core set, this is like a 5-year core set, right? So, like, we're not going to be seeing cards that are going to be drastically breaking the formats at
Right.
all, right? Because that would be fucking wild to
Insane.
say. Yeah,
Yeah.
and now you're locked in with me for 5 years. So there is some cool stuff to talk about here today, right? But like a lot of it is just like, yeah, some of these things are, and we do have some cards, I will say, in our like considering section that I think you and I can maybe, even with the time we have, go through quickly, that are like, yeah, this does one niche thing. We'll see, you know.
Yeah, we'll see how we're feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta be honest with you. I saw a TikTok earlier today that was just like a person going about their day, and the whole time they're doing it is just like, I could be playing Dragon Age Veilguard right now. I could be playing Dragon Age Veilguard. And I need you to know that no matter what I'm doing today, that is like ambient noise in the back of my head of just, I could be playing Dragon Age Veilguard right now.
Yeah.
So that's where my head is.
I both love that for you and hate that for me.
Well, let's take a look at the first card on our list. We're going to go through the legends first, as we always do. And our first legend on our list is Alesha, Who Laughs at Fate. Alesha is a 2/2 human warrior that costs a generic, a black and a red, and has first strike, and says whenever Alesha attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And it also has the raid ability at the beginning of your end step. If you attacked this turn, return target creature card with mana value less than or equal to Alesha's power from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is an interesting card in that it kind of makes its own path a little bit as far as like how card design works, but it is still like evocative of the original Alesha, which I think is really neat. We talked about this a bit with Phoenix, about like some of the cool like reanimator stuff that you can do with this. What are your thoughts on what this looks like? Maybe not even as a commander, but as a commander, or even as a card in the 99. And while you do that, I'm gonna shove some pizza in my face.
I don't really know about this in the 99. I think it's interesting. Like, and I think that's sort of my thought with this card in general. Like, it is an interesting card, and I don't really have like a whole lot to say about it when it comes to specifics, right? Because it's such a new design, right? I was disappointed to see that it is mana value and not power, because obviously that was the templating on the original Alesha. But that being said, I think it's a really interesting card. You know, the fact that it immediately, when it goes to combat, it doesn't have haste, right? So that's a whole thing. You're probably going to want to play like your Lightning Greave style effects in this deck anyways, right? But it's kind of weird because you want this to come out on turn like 3, I would argue, and then do you just sort of like let it sit there, kind of like Rowan, right? And then sort of go, okay, well, eventually I'll entomb something the turn afterwards, right? But then you're just entombing and getting back a 3-drop, which makes it, to me, like, it's not a super crazy like, oh, you gotta kill this thing, is gonna get back a 3-drop, right? Like, I'm not really, and that might be a good thing, right? Like in cEDH, we know optics are like a really important part of the format, right? So me looking at this commander and going, it's not that scary, might be okay, but at the same time, why am I playing a commander where the optics are, it's not that scary? Right? So I think you can do some really interesting stuff with this card. Obviously, Rakdos has a number of combos available to you, right? You've got all of your Kiki-Jiki things, which are awkward because you can't reanimate those things and then get them back in combat, because the raid trigger is a post-combat trigger, which I do think they did very, very intentionally.
And that was very smart of them, too, for what it's worth. That was the correct call.
It was, but it also makes this card way less appealing for cEDH purposes because of that, unfortunately. All that being said, I do think it's a really interesting and unique card design. I think that you can definitely have like a sort of, I want to say like a grindy Rakdos aggro side of thing going on with like some reanimator sub themes and stuff like that. I don't know if it's going to pass the test, is the TLDR, but One thing I do actually kind of like with this commander is sort of taking a sidestep from where you might expect it to go. And I actually think this would be really interesting as a discard commander.
Yeah. Mhm.
Because if you're shredding everybody's hands and then you're going to combat and like getting all of your creatures back, I'm like, okay, like you can kind of, you know what I mean? Like recurring a fucking mind slicer over and over again is just
Right.
like, you know, really just locking the whole table down. Now, it's pretty easy to argue in a Ristic Mystic meta, like, can you throw out enough discards so that your opponents aren't like abusing all of these card advantage
Right.
engines that we know are abundant in the current metagame, right?
Yeah.
It's all really good questions, right? So
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see where this commander goes, and I would love to see a really cool build with it. I think Rakdos, if I've learned
Arctos
one
is in an
thing,
interesting
yes,
position right
yes,
now.
yeah. If I've learned one thing the past 6 months is that Rakdos is just underexplored because everyone's gone, well, you have Rog, why wouldn't you just go beep beep, right? Like, just like fair. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad argument,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that there's not a whole plethora of other things to be explored in these colors. Like black is a really good color, and when it's
Mhm.
supported by red speed, it's like okay,
Wow, what a hot take, man. Black is a good color.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. I think just a lot of people have used Demir as a crutch, right, for quite some
Mhm.
time, and that black can. We've seen that with a lot of like these fringe
Well, I
decks.
mean, we talked about this last week on
Yeah,
the set review, right? Or the power rankings, where
yeah,
even in red, right, where
yeah,
it's just like a lot of people would just use Dockside as a crutch because it
yeah.
was just like, oh, I had to do Dockside loops,
Right,
blah, blah, blah.
right.
And then you just kind of get like this, I don't want to say lazy deck design, but you would get uninspired deck design.
Yeah, yeah, and we can use the term lazy without it being derogatory, right? Like
Yeah,
I personally have been a victim of lazy deck design because you know
yeah,
what? If you know something fucking works, it works, right?
right.
Like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's there's a lot of times where you're like, and I
Yeah,
kind of to hammer home that point is like you don't need to I say this a lot
you don't
when
need to
I'm
reinvent the
talking
wheel.
about like doing different like tournament structures and stuff,
Mhm.
and something I've said for years is it's like you don't need to reinvent the wheel with
Yep,
this, right?
yep.
And I think that's very fair with like deck construction
Mhm.
too, but the downside to that is you do kind of have this a little bit of sameness every now and
Yeah,
again,
yeah,
and when there is something that is that much better than everything
yeah,
else. So I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I think
yeah.
that this one of the things that I do like about it is that Alesha plays really favorably with
Mhm.
stuff that just like kind of pass like that. I'm thinking of like I forget what the card is from the Zada decks where it like pumps up your commander for the turn or whatever. And so you can end up using those as like pseudo reanimates in a way.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I hear you,
Yeah.
right? Like
And
it's
so
like
I
yeah.
think there's some interesting stuff
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
I'm not well versed enough in like
Yeah.
black red
Yeah.
nonsense to be the person to explore that, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, the idea of like entombing a Razaketh and then like blazing shoaling your commander is like really fucking cool to me, right? Like
Fair. That's fair. That's fair.
right? Like I think there's something there, right?
Yeah. Well, moving on to the next legend on our list. This is General Kreat, the Boltbringer.
Hmm.
It is a 2/2 goblin soldier that costs 2 generic and a red, and has 2 different abilities. One says whenever one or more goblins you control attack, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. And the other is whenever another creature you control enters, General Kreat, the Boltbringer, deals 1 damage to each opponent.
I don't know why when I first saw
Not
this
bad.
card, my immediate instinct was he bring it to bolt, and I don't know why. It's just like it's the first thing that popped into my head.
Is that the whole reason you put it on this list? Is so
Yeah,
you could just get
100%.
on
No,
here and
no.
do like insult an entire people?
Listen, it's not it's not out of character apparently. No, I actually really like this card. Maybe not necessarily as a face commander, right? Because as much as I enjoy this card, unfortunately, it only gives you one
It
goblin
doesn't
per
actually
combat.
bring it to bolt.
It does.
Uh,
It only bring it a ping. Uh, because yeah, it says whenever one or more goblins you control attack, right? So it only gives you one extra goblin per combat, right? Which is not bad. There also is a world where this might be worth considering a Minota, right? Because it's at worst case scenario is like for a long time there has been thought that there should be more of a goblin typal sub theme in Winota, right? As sort of like this sub package, because you've got Legion Warboss, you got Goblin Rabble Master, you've got Kiki Jiki, you got like there is a very solid amount of good actual goblins in Winota, right? So that's one thing entirely. But the TLDR is I like this guy a lot in the 99 of decks that care about goblins a lot, right? And there might be people who are like, without Dockside, who even cares about goblins? That's nothing. Goblins are actually like still a very powerful card type.
Goblins were strong before Dockside.
Yes.
Fun fact.
Strong after Dockside. Yeah. But specifically the fact that this is a Perforos effect on a goblin is why I really like this card, because there's a lot of combos that are very goblin specific, things like Muxus and like all of that stuff that have always wanted this effect and have had to use sack outlets like Mog Fanatic and like Siege Gang Lieutenant and stuff like that to be able to simulate as close to this effect as possible. But we've never had a Perforos on a goblin, right? Or I guess in the Impact Tremors, right? But like a Perforos effect on a goblin. And I think that's really big. I don't have like a lot of specific goblin shells for it, but the fact that this card exists is new and therefore opens up space with these things. So now your goblin recruiters, your goblin matrons, your Muxai can all hit, or even your Mod Catcher too, right? Can all pull this out of a library, because goblin is an important card type, right? So I do think that's actually pretty huge. I think we get closer and closer.
Goblin Winota is interesting. Actually, that's at first it sounds a little ridiculous. And the more I thought about it, I was kind of like, that's.
I mean, Winota started out as a Snoop deck, right? Like, no cap, like that was just a thing that the deck did originally, right? So like, it's not the craziest thing in the entire world by any means.
Man, I didn't realize that Snoop Dogg was playing CEDH.
Yeah, he's a really big Winota fan, though.
Yeah, it was a huge pivot for him off of the voice, honestly. Took a step into the CEDH sphere. Next legend here on our list is Gornog, the Red Reaper. This is a 2/3 Minotaur warrior that costs 2 generic and a red, has haste. Cowards can't block warriors, and whenever one or more warriors you control attack a player, target creature that player controls becomes a coward. And it also says attacking warriors you control get +X+O, where X is the number of cowards you control. And so it's time to play your favorite game show. Is this a Najeela card? I haven't done that bit in a while.
I know. I was like, as soon as I saw it on here too, I was like, oh, the bit's back.
The bit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think this is pretty plainly a Najeela card, right?
Yeah.
It is straightforwardly like I don't, you know what I mean? Like
like
what
okay, wait.
do I need to bring forward for you?
The button of the bit now goes, yes. No, but honestly, like every single combat, this scales in strength, right? Because it's +1/0 to all your whole team, right? For the first attack, right?
It will get +3 on your first attack with it.
Why do you get +3?
Whenever one or more warriors you control attack a player, target creature that player controls.
God, so I thought this was good when it only anthemed once. Are you fucking kidding me?
It +3s on the first go round with this, which is
this
bananas.
Finally what it takes to make beatdown Najeela like a tier 1 thing, right? Like I feel like we've been sort of flirting with this concept for a very long time, where it's like, we like it's kind of like a tier 1 Najeela, but like, is this it? Is this what we finally needed? This card's fucking insane in that deck, right?
Yeah.
Like it has haste too. Did it need it? Absolutely goddamn not, right? Like
also the fact that cowards can't block, like it just fixes so many problems the deck has.
Yeah.
Because like it is
the biggest criticism I have against this deck is always, and I mean legitimately always, the fact that we have like the Najeela is just bad at getting through in a grindy mode.
Once the board gets gummed up, it can't break through. This solves that problem.
Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah, this is really good. I love seeing in real time you realizing how powerful this actually is.
I already thought it was good. I was already like, this is a really good card, and then I realized it's better. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so pick up your copies of Gornog. This is new Najeela staples, boys and girls.
I like that's honestly the most enticed I've ever been to play Najeela is like when people have brought up the full just beat face Najeela. Like that is much more my idea of Najeela than like, no, but there's an Adnaz in there because it's good. Like which is like, don't get me wrong, it's a great concept. It's just boring to me. Like
no bad cards. Okay. Next legend on our list here is Neerdiv, Devious Diver. This is a 2/2 Merfolk Rogue that costs 2 generic and a blue. I'm seeing a trend here with these legends. Whenever Neerdiv becomes tapped, target player mills cards equal to its power. Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard or activate an ability of a card in your graveyard, draw a card and put a +1/+1 counter on Neerdiv. Are you going to bring up that deck that you sent me now?
No.
Is that what this is?
No, it wasn't. This is completely unrelated, but I love that that's where your brain goes. No, I mean,
I get a message yesterday where Ian's over here just like, bro, I dropped a deck in our group chat and you didn't even respond. And I'm just like, listen, I'm on Thetis right now. What do you want from me?
I understand your desire to flame me, but I also wanted to keep that deck a secret. Can you censor it? Is that okay? Just full censor it out. I'm like legitimately asking. I think that's very, very funny.
Leave all of this around it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Blanking out every time.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is we need to say it more and more. So it's
like, so every time that we say you have to come back and censor it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's why are we allowed to have a show? Like I feel like we should be allowed to do.
Thanks for 10K, everybody. What's the stupid meme? I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me.
Oh my god. Yeah, so what is the I mean, yes, the second ability is cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's mostly in there for the second ability, right? So
mostly in there for the second ability. Okay.
Yeah, I assume that like this could be a commander that you could fuck around with. I actually think it's a really interesting design space, right? You tap it for like a Springleaf Drum, or you go to combat with it, right? And you like do a little bit of self mill, and then I'm assuming you'd be playing like Jumpstart, Flashback, like all of those mechanics that allow you to. Because I mean, drawing a card for every single card that comes out of your graveyard is a super not irrelevant ability. Right?
JVP, baby.
No, we're not doing Jason Project. Get out of here. Actually, it probably deserves to be in the 99, to be honest, of this deck. But in general, like I think any graveyard deck, like it. Now there are cards that have existed that do a similar thing in the past. I think it's the picture of the crypt, and it's got like a blue thing in the door. I can't remember it's like something of keeper. This like it's like it's literally an enchantment. Says whenever you cast a card out of a graveyard, draw a card. But it's a similar card that exists to this.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about, right? So
yeah,
like,
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name, but I can see the art in my head.
Yeah, it's from Innistrad because it was when Flashback came out, right? But this is just way better, in my opinion. Like being on a creature, progressively getting larger.
And in your command zone.
And once again, like I'm talking about this in the 99, in the command zone as well. Like there's so many cool ways you can really mess around with this card.
It could be in your, it could be in your wedding party. Like it just really does really well. It might fit well in your Baldur's Gate 3 party composition.
Yeah,
like, this is a flexible card.
Yeah, it could be the 6th member of your Pokemon team.
Yeah, like I think in VG, what is it, VGL, that this VG. Would be VGC. This is a great one to put in your lineup.
You know, it's also really good is like when you have one of those things where you're like trying to put a square block in the square hole and then a round peg in a round hole. This could just really fit in any of those situations.
Yeah, it could just fit into any hole, right? Like it honestly would be it'd be a great quarterback.
Like when you want to go to a wedding and you're like, I don't want to invite my significant other, but I also don't want to invite my crazy friend. You're like, who's the perfect person to like fit in the social situation?
Neerdiv, perfect.
Neerdiv.
Neerdiv is the it's the permanent +1.
It's your permanent
of wedding.
Can we get that at like a little freeze flame Neerdiv, your permanent +1?
I mean, it does get counters, so it
we're
kind of
fucking
works,
on one
right?
this episode. Yeah. But it does. It gets counters, so it mills more every time you use it. It's good. It's got a really clever, intricate design, and I think it's just, I don't know, it's a really cool card. Mausoleum Secrets. Is that it? Is that the name of the card?
Mausoleum Secrets. That sounds correct.
Yeah.
Next card on our list here, next legend here is Plagon, Lord of the Beach. I almost said bleach because my face did some weird things with my mouth. Anyway, Plagon is a 0/3 starfish wizard. Insert your this has got to be in the SpongeBob secret lair, right?
Probably.
Like easily.
It's just
anyway.
Patrick. Yeah.
No, it's Plagon. Anyway, Plagon, when Plagon, Lord of the Beach, enters, draw a card for each creature you control with toughness greater than its power. And then it also has an activated ability that costs either a white or a blue. And it says target creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power this turn. Okay. All right, mad scientist, why is this on my deck set review?
Okay, so first of all, this is in my opinion, one of the wackiest designs ever on a card. I actually like this card quite a lot, unironically. Well, I should say a lot in the sense that, like, normally when they make a weird meme card, it's not also vaguely cEDH playable, and that's what this is, and I'm really excited about it.
Please show your work.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Hullbreaker deck at the very least, right? Like, it is a deck that will go infinite with Hullbreaker Horror as long as you have it counts itself too, right? Yeah. For each creature you control. Yeah. So like you don't need anything else. Hullbreaker also, I'm pretty sure, has more toughness than power, ironically, as well. So so yeah, you can just loop your commander over and over again if you bounce it infinitely. To be able to draw through your entire deck, right? So it's an ETB bounce thing. I guess it also technically works with Deadeye Navigator Peregrine Drake as well, because Peregrine Drake has more toughness than it does power. It's a very memey card, and you can play it in a cEDH deck, and therefore I find this super funny, and I will be building this. Will I probably do well with it at a tournament? I'm expecting not. Is this hilarious? Absolutely. I really like, that's mostly it. I think this is just a very funny card design. The art on it is awesome, and you can play it in a cEDH context. Also, it's called Lord of the Beach, and all I can think about is fucking Ken from the Barbie movie. So now it's an alternative one.
It's Patrick.
But no, I don't know. I just think it's a really cool card design, and it's very silly and over the top, and that makes me happy. So that's where we're at.
Next card on our list here is Dionus, Elvish Archdruid. This is a 3/3 elf druid that costs 3 generic and a green. And it says, elves you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped during your turn, untap it and put a +1/+1 counter on it. This ability triggers only once each turn. Well, this seems familiar. I noticed this card design. So this is an interesting card. Do you see this as a commander? Do you see this at a 99? Like, is this Nadu Part 2, Electric Boogaloo?
I don't know about Nadu.
Yeah.
No, I think this card's insane, right? Like, I don't like, if there is a card that's gonna make Elf Ball a thing, to me it feels like this one. I don't know. Like, I really don't know what else there is to like say about it, apart from the fact that it's like very clearly broken, right? Like, I don't know, your Elvish Mystic's like doing it again every single turn, right? And it's like, worst case scenario, it's mono green Kinnan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Best case scenario, you're tapping like a Circle of Dreams Druid twice, like, or like Elvish Elvish Archdruid, and like I mean, like there's I mean, elf ball. It's an archetype. It's a whole ass.
I mean, like there's a very clear way to just make infinite mana with this, and like one of the things with Ashaya, and then like bounce a forest creature.
Yeah.
Because you can reset the ability by like bouncing it back to your hand.
Yeah, I don't really know how you would loop it with that, but
you would need to like bounce it back to your hand. Like I think it would work specifically with like Elves of Dream Druid, the or Circle of the Gaia's Cradle on a creature,
right,
where you can like just make a bunch of mana because you're able to just return it to your hand, replay it, then tap your thing, untaps it, then you can return the other thing to your hand. And like once you have enough mana, I think you just need like 5 mana on the first activation, because you would need to replay this in the Quarian Ranger.
Yeah, well, you can already go infinite with the Quarian Ranger loop with any dork that taps for 2, right? With the Shia.
Right. Well, yes, because you need...
Yes.
You untap it. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay,
yeah.
I don't know. Listen, I don't do mono green.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
You can break this. This is breakable, I think, is fair to say.
This commander's busted. I generally, like, if you're playing it in an elf deck, that's awesome. It does crazy work there. But I feel like having access to this in the zone makes it very, like, sort of just obviously powerful, right?
Right.
And yeah, just like having all of them having this like tap on tap ability multiple turns over is like worst case scenario. If you are flooding out, like you go to combat and swing and anthem all your creatures, and then they untap and you can tap them for mana, right? And then
this is actually nuts with like Marwyn specifically, because Marwyn just like taps, untap it. It got bigger. Now it taps again, makes more mana. Like that's actually ridiculous.
And if you can find a way to, which I don't think it's that hard to do. Oh yeah, because you can like, I'm not great. You can Temur Sabertooth this, right? Because then you like you pick it up, you put it back down, and then you like tap all your dorks. They untap again, and as long as you're making 7 mana with that exchange, you're able to just go infinite too, right? Because as long as you pick up and replay this commander, yeah, that's insane too, right? That's just like a straight up loop. Yeah. So like Circle of Dreams Druid, yeah, you just pick it up, put it back down. The Cloudstone Curio, you can easily go off with this commander as well. Like it just literally finding a way to reset it over and over again makes it so that like I just feel like you like sneeze and you make infinite green mana with this deck. And like you can argue that Shia does something really similar, which it's a really safe argument, but there's something about like having the elf synergy that I think is stronger in general.
I think because you get the like, it's not just the mana you get, right? Because it also gives you the pivot of, okay, I need to just like beat you down. And that's the other thing that's neat about the infinite mana is like, it also acts as like a, what's the big green, like that everybody hates, the
Craterhoof.
Yeah, it's also like a little bit of a Craterhoof too, right? Because it just like makes
counters on all of them,
right? So it's like it is the way to make infinite mana, and is also the outlet for the mana too. So
yeah, as long as they don't have summoning sickness, you're able to just like anthem your whole team and then crunch in for combat. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I really think this card's busted. Yeah, like you resolve a Concordant Crossroad in this deck, and you're off to the races. You know what I mean?
No kidding. No kidding. Or an enduring vitality, or like any of those sorts of things are just like strong as fuck.
Yeah. No, I think this is actually like a really, really cool deck. Yeah, I think this might be like the strongest elf ball commander of all time. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next legend here. This is Rev, Tithe Taker. This is a 3/3 human rogue that costs 3 generic and a black. And says whenever you attack, target creature gains death touch until end of turn. And it also says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, then look at the top card of that player's library and exile it face down. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. Professional Facebreaker who? Hi. I would like to introduce you to strictly better professional Facebreaker.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
For one more mana, you also get cards on top of your treasure. Like,
yeah, and also the ability to give something death touch too, which is
I actually think this is significantly better than professional Facebreaker because like the criticism I've always had with professional Facebreaker, right, is you are exchanging your mana for cards. And so you don't have a way to, you have to have like an obscene amount of treasures to really take advantage of that second ability on professional Facebreaker. This is just like, what if you just had both? Come on. What are you doing, man? And it's just like, well, how much does it cost? Oh, the same cost as a Grim Hireling. Oh, okay. Like,
yeah. Would you trade one treasure from a Grim Hireling for an extra card every combat?
Yes. Easy.
Yeah, exactly. For 1 mana, exile the top of target player's library. You may play that card
for as long as it remains exiled, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, it just is your card now, which is so cool. I love this card design. I think this is really good. I can't wait to play this in Tivit. Like, I'm
really Tivit. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those. I've already been like on the fence about like Grim Hireling for a really long time. And I think this being a card advantage engine also kind of makes me go, okay. You know what I mean? Like it kind of gives me a reason to want to be on that. So this is a card that I don't know what I take out for it.
Yeah.
I think that's the key issue there. But I think that like generally speaking that this feels like a pretty safe, like, you know, the treasure synergy in that deck is already like anytime you have something that can like get you treasures is really strong.
Yeah, it's one of those like, oh, well, if you lose a player due to X, Y, or Z circumstance, this also still helps time see.
Right, exactly. Which is partially why you play like Shieldred too, right? Is because it just makes the combat math a lot easier. So, but you know, you can shake your head all you want. I've won tons of games because of that card. So
whatever, nerd. No, speaking of which, side tangent, Tivit looked great this weekend when I played against it. I blame Max had a crazy run. He only lost 2 games the entire tournament. So.
Yeah, Tivit's incredibly well positioned. I loved how everybody like post ban was just like immediately like, oh, that deck's dead. And I'm like, what the fuck are you on? Like this deck has never been a turbo. Like, great. If you are turboing Tivit out, you're playing it wrong.
Yep.
Like,
agreed. All right.
So yeah, Rev, I am excited to give her the
this is, you know, you could play this as mono black commander. We're probably not, right?
No,
like it's in the
I think this honestly, you know, outside of Tivit, like just to kind of go back on this, like I think this is like maybe one of the best Tymna gets in like a hot minute because this goes in like every fucking Tymna deck. Like
I'd be interested in seeing how people actually adapt to it because like 4 mana is a premium at this point, right? So like, you know, Hireling hasn't been played in Tymna decks in a hot minute, you know? So I'm interested to see.
But I think with the format, I think that like using the hot minute thing kind of goes out the window when you slow the turn or the format down by a turn, right? Like you've already seen Tymna Crom moving on to Facebreaker.
Yeah.
And so I think like this is just strictly better. And so I think you have like a better reason, like a
honestly, the Facebreaker thing is a really good point. That has been like a lot of people's band-aid post Mana Crypt ban.
Yeah.
And putting Facebreaker and Tymna Crom. So that's super fair.
I think this is just better than Facebreaker there. So that's just what I think. Anyway, next legend here is Niv-Mizzet Visionary. This is a 5/5 dragon wizard. It's like Dragon Age. I've been playing a lot of that.
Oh my God, shut up.
And it costs 4 generic and a blue and a red. And it has flying. You have no maximum hand size. And whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. So this has combo potential out the wazoo.
This is crazy. I'm so glad we get to finally talk about it because I've been trying to be really chill about this card.
We both saw this card and were immediately like, whoa, okay.
I keep rereading it to think like, oh, I'm missing.
I have to be wrong about this, right?
Right. I keep going, where's the part that I'm fucking misreading?
Right.
excuse me? like, are you kidding me with this card? Like, I think it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Did we actually read it yet, or did I bug out?
No, we read it.
Okay,
we read
cool,
the whole card.
Cool.
You
I'm
did
like,
also bug out, but we did read it. But that
like,
was a different type of bugging out.
Cal, like, you resolve a Niv-Mizzet, and then in the fucking Christmas world where you have one other card, one other card, and you fucking resolve a Price of Progress with this card out, like, yeah, I'm gonna draw like 16 fucking cards. All right. Like that's one 2-mana spell that you can resolve after this card, or a new card that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. That, you know what, fuck it, let's talk about it right now. The brand new the Boltwave that we will talk about a little bit more in detail, which is 3 to each opponent for 1 mana. It's like, okay, cool. I resolve Niv. I'm going to pay 1 red and draw 9.
Draw 9. Ancestral Recall, eat your heart out.
Like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, not to mention the fact that there are activated or triggered abilities that can go off after you resolve this card without you needing to spend mana on it, right? Okay, meme time, right? But like it curving like 5 mana of like a Heartless Hidetsugu into this, like I'm never doing that, right? But like it's a meme that can exist, and I know that
you can do that.
I know now that I've said it, there's going to be someone who's like, I'm going to draw 60 cards, motherfucker. Like, let's go. Right. But like, that's the meme answer, but it's still a thing that you can do. Right. Like, and so like, yeah, I think this card's absolutely insane. It's what isn't needed to feel viable. The fact that it is blue-red as the pips and then a bunch of fucking generic mana is like, thank goodness. Because as much as I loved Niv-Mizzet Perun, that card was uncastable by any means. Also, the fact that this fits in Malcolm Kedis and also works with Malcolm Kedis, because guess what? The Kedis triggers are non-combat damage that you are dealing to your opponents. So that's at least 4 cards that you are drawing off of that. Like, this is such a good card. Also, there's like wild weird synergies with like Glinthorn Buccaneer with this card too, right? Like you have to do the manual discards, right? But like, oh no, because actually when you go to your end step, doesn't, right? Am I crazy? That's a cleanup loop, right? Because if you have extra cards, you discard and then it deals.
Well, no, you have no maximum hand size.
Oh, damn it. Okay, yeah. All right, that's fine. I mean, I got. Oh, I'll deal with my like 18 cards. Yeah. So okay,
I just have all these cards.
Yeah. So that part
sucks so bad.
Yeah. But I just think this card's actually crazy. Like if you play it, like light case scenario, you play like a Thermo Alchemist, and then you just like resolve your commander, and then cool, I'm gonna tap and just draw 3 cards, right? Like that's, and then every instant sorcery on taps, and I'm drawing another 3 cards. It's what Ob had the potential to be, but also not nerfed, right? Like and we've been talking about, hey, you know, the format's in a really good place for a Blue Moon commander. There you go. Like
this might be a little bit better than Galazeth.
This just a little bit. Yeah.
This might be better than Galazeth. It's
this is crazy. This is like actually a crazy commander. Like I'm bugging out, and like, yes, I know 6 mana. No.
But we've talked about this so much, where the whole like, oh, it's 6 mana, it's 7 mana, right? Like the fact that Tithe and Atraxa are fine should be more than enough reason for you to look at the one of the best color pairings of just making a bunch of fucking mana and be like, yeah, it's probably fine, right? Like I think this is going to be a viable commander. I'm interested to see in the popularity of it. You know, that's kind of what it always comes down to with these things, right? Is because you have stuff like this that has legs, but it's like who's playing it, and I think that always ends up being the issue.
Oh, this commander is my whole personality for like a month. I don't. I know, legitimately though, like you and I have talked probably more than any other cEDH creator group about like how burn is like an interesting archetype. This is one of those things that I go like, cool, I'm happy to play an Eidolon of Rhetoric, and if it never like if for some reason I never get my commander down, great. Like I've put a little pressure on the table, et cetera. Like fuck your necro.
You get that and your commander down, and you're just like, my deck can only get so hard, guys.
Every single instant sorcery or spell less than 3 is suddenly like, cool, I'll draw 2. Cool, I'll draw 2. Cool, I'll draw 2. Rhystic Study, eat your heart out. Like, are you kidding me? This commander is absolutely buck wild. And I know I'm being very like dramatic.
I gotta be honest. I got really erect when you just described that past scenario. It really did it for me. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it's so funny too. Like I've been like the part of me that like wants to play a red burn deck. I've been like, oh, but like I just want blue to be able to like back up all my stuff, right? And I was looking at like Gearson Starn, but that card has so many like, but this is a weird scenario where you actually hurt yourself more than other people, right? This does not have that.
Yeah,
This is
this
just
one's
like,
just like go off, king.
yeah, like if you can do a little tempo, you can do a little burn, and then sometimes you just like, oh, I pay 2 mana and draw 16 cards. Like it's just it's crazy. It's actually insane how good this card is.
Ian's over here. She sees this card is slowly turning into Crash Bandicoot.
What's the guy's like, oh. What is the noise he makes? It's just like it's the mask guy who's always like, you know, yeah, okay, yeah. This is one of our more unhinged episodes.
We've been due for one, honestly. It's been a minute, but all right, moving on to just our regular creatures now. We first one up here, we've got Scythecat Cub. This is a 2/2 cat that costs a generic and a green, has trample and landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, double the number of +1/+1 counters on that creature instead. Thank God. Thank God Nadu is banned. But also, God damn it, I wish Nadu wasn't banned so I could play this and not. What are your thoughts on this card? This card's like very obviously strong, right? Like straightforwardly strong.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know. It's just good, right? Like I really have nothing super crazy to say. Like
let's build Rayhan Shy with this. Like I think that's what this deck is really asking for us.
No, I mean there's like plenty of commanders that care about like the Nadu-esque thing or +1 counters and stuff like that have been like, you know, there are some applications for some of these cards that are, you know, like Azuris and they have like all weird like counter synergies. You move stuff around and it does something with something, and like there's a lot of fringe commanders that care about +1 counters, right? And
yeah, like Rayhan Shy.
And then being able to be like, all right, cool, 2 mana, play a fetch land. Suddenly, I'm entering some sort of counter based combo is like kind of dumb, right? Like I really have no other way to say it. It's just like kind of stupid in a very powerful way. So yeah, it's just very very powerful.
Yeah, it's a good cat. That is, you heard it here first, folks. It is a good kitty. Next card on our list here is Wriggling Grub. This is a 1/1 worm that costs a generic and a black. And it says whenever Wriggling Grub dies, create 2 1/1 black and green worm creature tokens. I did not include this.
I did, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, TLDR on this is we haven't had one of these 2 mana sacrifice creatures that make 2 bodies before. And traditionally speaking, when you look at like aristocrat style strategies, which are like, there's a lot of like fringe versions, right? So there's like stuff you can do with like Chatterfang or with like I've seen some stuff with like the food combos and like all of that kind of stuff. This is all once again like in the fringes of the format, right? But a lot of those things have had cards where you sack a thing, make a body, which then allows for like Phyrexian Altar combos, Ashnod's Altar combos, like all of that sort of nonsense. Korvold's another place where I actually really like this a lot too, right? And so normally you get 1 body for 1 body, and that's the rate that we've been used to for a long time. But the fact that you get 2 bodies for 1 body at 2 mana is actually very enticing. And so there are going to be situations where this coming up, because like if, for example, like if you have a way to loop this, right, cast it over and over again, with Phyrexian Altar, that you're actually making more mana. You make triple black for a double or 1 and a black card, right? So there's stuff here with this card. It is very much a, if you're in a niche space looking for a niche type of effect like this is a very, they've never done this before, so it therefore opens up more potential. Is the TLDR, right?
Okay. I was wondering why this was on our set review.
Yeah. It's like a very niche scenario, but it's a scenario that is not irrelevant, right, for cEDH purposes.
Okay. Next card on our list here is Abyssal Harvester. This is a 3/2 Demon Warlock that costs a generic into black. Has an activated ability that requires you to tap it, and it says exile target creature card from a graveyard that was put there this turn. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a nightmare in addition to its other types. Then exile all other nightmare tokens you control. It's a pretty interesting card. A little bit of grave hate, a little bit of hey, I'd like to also have that while I'm grave hating sort of stuff. And you get the ETBs off of the stuff that you steal. What are your thoughts on this?
At the end of the day, right? Like, this is just tap reanimate a creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
effectively,
like
you
I
can't
don't know,
like loop reanimate creature stuff, but
sure, right? But like 3 mana, play this next turn, Entomb, tap Razaketh.
GG's.
Yeah, like I think Reanimator decks have wanted this thing
right
for a long time. The fact that it doesn't sacrifice itself, it doesn't like cost extra mana, right? Like none of that stuff. It's not even relegated to sorcery speed, unless I'm misreading, right? Like,
no,
this is just like a threat at all times, just to be like, hey, like, don't let me ever have this in the survival of the fittest, right? Like, or don't let me ever have like this plus hold up in 2 mana or unmarked grave. Like, here's just this absolute fucking killer of a card that just sits there and goes, give me a moment, just wait, you're gonna mess up and then I'm gonna get you. Right. The only thing it doesn't really work well with is like Protein Hulk, right? Because you can't afford to exile that, but that's like it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I don't know. It's like, it's just generically good. I think that's what we're gonna see with this set, is like things are gonna have sort of a blank, simple text to them, right? And like with Niv, like, we're looking for a loophole because they've been throwing like, but when you do 6 somersaults backwards, that doesn't only activates once a turn. But this is just like, no, just fucking brings the thing back for a tap.
Yeah, fair. Next card on our list here is Scrawling Crawler. This is a 3/2 Phyrexian construct artifact creature that costs 3 generic mana. And it says at the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card, and whenever an opponent draws a card, that player loses 1 life. A little more draw hate.
Yeah.
What do you think on this card? This is a little bit more in that like range of what's the effect that this is called? This is like an enchantment that this is on a body.
Underworld Dreams.
No, is it Underworld Dreams?
It is. Yes.
Okay, it's
the
Underworld Dreams on a body. There you go.
Yep. And also in colors that do not normally have this card
right.
ability, right? I also like that it's at your upkeep, each player draws an additional card, right? So they're not getting the benefits on their turns. They are getting more interaction for your turns, hypothetically, right? But like, that's still like, the Howling Mine effects have always been bad, right? Because you play the card and then your opponents get 3 draws and can always blow up your Howling Mine before it gets back to your turn, right? But this specifically says nobody's getting a benefit until I do. And also, they're already starting to get pinged in the turn order before we even get back to my upkeep, right? So this is the most, or I should say the least punishing this effect has ever been, you know, which I like quite a lot. And you did put this card on here too. Was there anything else that you were thinking?
No, I mean, I just think that like the more like the fact that this is colorless, I think is the big like
upside,
the big upside for it, because of the fact that you get like all of the like big bonuses of like why you would want to be on this to begin with. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think the big thing being that you get more of these, like we've talked about like that Nekusar list before, where I think we're starting to get to a point where like there's enough of these effects where like you could make an argument it's worth it to play.
Also, you play this at Ob, right? I assume.
Oh, for sure, right?
Yeah,
like, have to. And because it would trigger individually, I believe. So I think that's super solid. So
yeah, and then suddenly all those Rhystic Mystic fights, you're like, yes, I have one too. Ping, ping, ping. Yeah, it seems sweet. I'm a big fan of this card.
Yeah, no, I think it's hot.
The design is very solid, and once again, this is the first time they've ever designed it where it's not like, and also you get the worst situation from this card that you put mana into. It's like, what? Why would we want that?
Next card on our list here is Fae Trickster. This is a 4/2 fairy wizard that costs 3 generic and a blue, has flash and flying, and says you may cast spells as though they had flash. I guess we're just doing it now, right? I guess this is just part of Blue's color design now. Yeah. Like what we've gotten like a new one every set for like 3 or 4 sets in a row. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see what comes of this one, right? I like that this one is not limited to card types, and I actually think this is one of the better balanced ones that they've printed, right? And I hope that maybe they chill on these effects a little bit, because I think this is the perfect balance to it, right? Born Upon the Wind, cheapest version, cantrips itself, happens once, right?
Yep.
Flood Caller, slightly cheaper, has additional upside with the untapping, but limited to non-creature and therefore can fit only in certain windows and certain decks. This one can give everything flash. 4 mana though. That's really big, right? And so like, I have decks that I want to play this in. I think this finally puts the nail in the coffin that was my belief that Final Word Phantom may ever see play.
I don't think that card's playable, bud.
As I said, the hope that may see play. But like, it's cool because I like this in some of those more flexible decks, and especially in the more mid-rangey. Like in Kinnan, I've always wanted this instead of Flood Caller, although I probably play Flood Caller as a slight priority, maybe a little bit more, but like the amount of times I've been able to like, oh, if I could only like flash in a Wandering Archaic right now at the instant speed, to be able to do stuff would be super awesome, you know?
To the high Fae, spells that take a human years to master come as easily as breathing. That's the flavor text on the card, in case you were wondering.
Amen, you know?
Hallelujah.
Do you have any extra thoughts on this one?
Nah, it's just good. Like, what do you want me to say about like all your cards have flash? Like, what can I possibly say to let you know that it's better? Like, what else do you want me to say? Like,
in a format where there are 3 times as many of your opponent's turns as there are your own, turns out being able to play spells on anyone's turn, good.
It's the Steph Curry of cEDH. There you go. Like, is that what the fans want? It's
sports.
Next card on our list here is Sphinx of the Forgotten Lore. This is a 3/3 Sphinx. Shocker. That costs 2 generic and 2 blue. That has flash, flying, and whenever this creature attacks, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana cost. So it's like kind of like a Snapcaster that sticks around.
Yeah, right?
Ish. But you can't use it right away. You have to attack, which is a drawback. So it like limits the usability of it. But
having flash makes it way more digestible, I will say. Like being able to hold up mana and then be like, all right, end step, like get this guy back. It's like, I feel like I don't know what
this is going to be really good in like the blue-white control list in standard. I feel like this is going to make a impact there, which is great because that deck needed to be so much better. No, I think this is solid. I don't know what I'd play it in. I think is the trouble I have.
It's like a grindy deck card, right? Like some sort of like not pivot per se, but like maybe like a slower blue farm, or like, you know what I mean? Like
I think my brain goes to like what I struggle with is I'm like, what deck has instant? Because here's what I think the issue is in like our format. Where outside of like tutors, what instants and sorceries are you casting that aren't tutors or counter spells?
I don't know that outside of tutors is a condition we have to put on it, because a second demonic and or vampiric or enlightened tutor is like
very good. That's fair.
Dumb once.
I think that's my issue with it though. Is it's like outside of like counter spells, it's like you're just double tutoring, but like couldn't you just play more tutors? I don't know.
I'll take issue with that one because we are constantly seeing how some of these decks, like for example, Rogsai, like they're playing like Demonic Council now, right? Not that I'm saying Rogsai plays this, right? But there are definitely quality drops in tutor levels,
Sure,
right? Like,
sure.
so I would rather, and this reminds me of like, I do think Xerox strategies, and for those who aren't 3,000 years old, right? Yeah, exactly. Are a little bit underrepresented given how much slower the meta is right now.
Jesus.
Xerox being like,
that was a fucking
I know.
blast from the. I haven't
Yeah.
heard somebody bring up
Refer to
Xerox
Xerox
control in so fucking long.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
TLDR, everybody, Xerox means like you're basically using the ponders, the preordains, your cantrip style cards to increase the card efficiency of your deck in general, right? So, you know, hypothetically, like a Kess looks at a card like this because, you know, Kess can get back one thing one time, right? The idea that you can now double up on that is like kind of attractive, right? Especially with some of the grindier, like I can see grindier Demir decks wanting this type of effect, right? Get my tutors back, get my demonic tutor back. Your tutors don't always resolve the first time is the other thing too, right? Like that's a big part of this. And once again, the fact that it has flash, like you can sandbag this as long as you need to. And then sometimes you're like, cool, end step, pop this back, try and flash back this spell, the X, Y, or Z spell that has high impact in this scenario, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that there are like uses for it. I just am like a little like, you know, I'm not entirely sold on it, but I'm not like saying it's bad. I'm just like, I have a healthy skepticism, if that makes sense.
Sure. I think it also just being mono blue opens it up to so many potential decks.
That's true. That's true.
There's very little downside to me for this card. It is just the format has a lot of upside. So it's about figuring out where in those numbers that we fit it, right?
Right. Well, next card on this list is a card that we've already talked about, but we're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail. This is Boltwave. I don't know what more detail we can get into it. Boltwave is a cost 1 red mana. It is a sorcery that says Boltwave deals 3 damage to each opponent. Hey guys, we made what's the arcane
Lava Spike.
We made strictly better Lava Spike.
Yep. Yeah, that's big, I think, for this format, actually. I think there are a lot of decks that have wanted a Lava Spike style card, right? You know, once again, the Fringe Burn decks we've talked about, right? Like, if you ever put this in Soulfim, it's like, cool, I'll do 1 mana to 6 damage each.
Well, and that's something that's interesting because we've talked about on this channel, like, the 2 archetypes we talked the most about as like fringe strategies are like the discard strategies and the burn strategies. And what do we always say with that? We need them to be universal, wide. It needs to hit everybody. And this feels like that card.
And we went on a whole rant a little while ago about how we want like a multiplayer Thoughtseize, and this is the multiplayer Lava Spike, right? Like this is just.
I think that is a reality. Like I think that is gonna happen eventually. It's just a matter of time at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, hell, I'll take a multiplayer Inquisition of Kozilek if you're willing to give it.
Like whatever.
Right?
Yeah,
right.
I think they're all super solid. Like I think they all would be really well played, right? And they suck a little bit for Commander, but like don't put it in a Commander set. Put it in like a Modern Horizon set, right? Like doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter, right? Like I think just throwing them into something where it's like, oh hey, this is a really cool thing to have access to. I think it's a matter of time, to be honest. But like here we go with like this is the start. This is how these things happen, right? We've already started seeing a lot of these things that are like ETB, each opponent discard a card, right?
Well, and it's very clear that they're like especially Foundations, I think makes it very clear is they're like, we're going to reformat some of our older cards to work in multiplayer. And I think that's super solid. The stocks though for like if you're playing Burn in a 60 card format, like your ears perked way the fuck up when you saw this card get printed.
I mean, just like, your standard legal, right? I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure there's like a standard Burn deck that is very good. Like, no doubt.
Yeah, this reminds me of like when I played Magic for the first time. Like, very much of this is iconic red, right? And it feels like they're respecting red in a way that, like, we took away your dock set, but here you at least get a burn spell.
Next card on our list here is Electroduplicate. This is a sorcery that costs 2 generic and a red, and it says create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it has haste. And at the beginning of its end step, sacrifice this token, and it has flashback that costs 2 generic and 2 red. I don't know why I hesitated so long on that red. You're doing a little jig over here. You Really showing how Irish you are right now.
My people would be offended.
Yeah, so Electroduplicate, we've got another dual caster mage combo piece, y'all.
I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have exactly used the words,
I play Underworld Breach and Atali because it's great to be able to cast a Twin Flame again from the graveyard. They gave us a Twin Flame with flashback. I am geeked. This is so awesome for Atali. It gives you that.
But Ian, I thought Atali was dead.
Fuck you. No, it gave us late game inevitability. I'm so excited about this. This is awesome for Atali. You can probably play it in other stuff in red too, right? Once again, a dual caster bottom that like has flashback potential is like really, really cool. Yeah, I'm super excited that this exists. I've wanted an effect like this in Atali for a really long time, and it's a little overcosted, but it gives you a second cast. So like, fuck it. Like I'm down. You know what I mean? Like,
we already play like Twin Flame and shit like that, right? Like, I mean, it's like
Atali plays Twin Flame, Heat Shimmer, Molten Duplication,
Heat Shimmer's
and
the
First Mirror, right? Like it, on top of Jaxis and Rionia, and like just like 1,000 ways to make another Atali. This is just that again. It's awesome. I'm into it, right? Like
good shit.
Yeah, this is just fundamentally so good for that deck. Yep.
Yeah. Next card here we've got is Raise the Past. This is a sorcery that costs 2 generic and 2 white, and it says return all creature cards with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is a pretty neat card. Yeah. It has like some of that Secure the Wastes vibe to it. I think that was how you described it in our group chat.
Return to the Ranks.
Return to the Ranks. Yeah. Yes, that's the one that I meant. Yeah. Secure the Waste is the one that makes all the warriors.
Yeah.
I knew that. Anyway, this is a neat card. Where do you think that this lands if it does?
I think this card's really cool in a deck that doesn't exist right now, right? Is kind of my idea with it. So for those who were playing Standard back in 2016, 2017, I want to say, there was the Collected Company Return to the Ranks deck, right? Which is basically like you would have a sack outlet, you would sack all your 1s and 2s, and then you would cast Return to the Ranks and would bring them all back, and you get like a ridiculous amount of Enter the Battlefield value and all that kind of stuff, right? For those who've been playing cEDH period, right, there's a lot of very powerful cards that have less than 2 power, like very, very distinctly, right? So now that there's a little bit of redundancy for this effect, I feel like there's been a couple of these that existed, right?
This does get mana value.
Mana value. That's fine. Yeah. We can work with that too, right? And I think I was referring to mana value with the other card anyways. But like, yeah, there's a bunch of really broken 2-drops in this format, right? There's a bunch of broken 1-drops in this format. There's definitely something that you can build here, right? Like this idea of like, okay, fill my graveyard, then cast this, bring all of the small creatures back, and there's some sort of aristocratic thing or some sort of like ETB, all these abilities trigger. Like it seems very easy to do something ridiculous with this.
Yeah. This is just a strictly better Return to the Ranks.
Yeah.
Like, maybe not strictly because the other one had Convoke, but I think the fact that you don't have to pay X and it's just a flat 4 and you get everything with mana value 2 or less instead of, how much X is.
Yes. Exactly.
And you are correct. Return to the Ranks was mana value 2 or less.
Cool. And this is just flat all of them, right? Like
Return to the Ranks is just like, hey, you got two mana value creatures in your graveyard, bring them back, baby. Yeah. I think this is cool. I would love to see a like Collected Company style deck in Commander, like very much.
I was actually working with somebody the other day on a deck where it was like a creature combo deck, and straight up I was like, you have so many high impact 3 and 2 drops that I'm unironically gonna say maybe test Collected Company, and so far it sounds like it's actually working out really well.
I totally would buy it.
Yeah.
Next card on our list here is we're moving over into the instance, and this is Delightful Discovery. This is an instant that costs 4 generic and a blue, and it says the spell costs 1 less to cast for each spell your opponents have cast this turn. And it says scry 2, then draw 2 cards.
I can see this card being 1 blue, scry 2, draw 2.
Often. Like,
yeah. If you get to that mid game point with cEDH, like one person plays a spell for turn, they play a second spell for turn. That spell is a little bit of a concern. They play a counter spell. Another player plays something else. Oh, it's 1 blue now. Even if that's like if at 2 or 3 mana at instant speed, this is still a playable card.
Mm-hmm.
People play spells on their turns. Like, I don't know what to say about it, but apart from like, I read this card and I was like, there's no way. like that's actually kind of insane, especially if you're in the middle of one of those, like, because I think we're seeing this so much in the current metagame right now, which is like we hit these critical nexus of like, these are the turns that people are trying to win after they've assembled their value engines, and this person goes for the thing, then this person goes on top, and then on response to the stack, this person does this thing, and you're like, cool. In response to all of that, I'm gonna scry 2 and draw 2. Okay, cool. I've bottom 1 card, and I've put the 2 counter spells I need to win this counterspell fight on top of my hand, and I like, it's just like, it fits that mold perfectly, right? If you don't care about the mana value of your deck needing to be lower, this is great for that, right? So like, obviously you don't want this in a Bolas Citadel deck or a Nas deck or, you know, something like that. But if you're playing like a TNT or something similar, or even like a lower color blue deck that doesn't have as many options as like these more high color decks, I think it fits kind of perfectly into those, especially if you want to push for that grindier game.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I also read this and went, what?
Yeah.
Excuse me. I thought we all collectively said that like Treasure Cruise was bad, right?
Yeah,
like I thought we all agreed on that.
Yeah.
Like that. This is gonna be. I think this is a solid card.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I'm really excited to test it. Like I don't know where it's going quite now, but like I feel like it's gonna deserve to be in more decks than we're even gonna put it in to begin with. You know,
I think it might. I don't know. Never mind.
Were you gonna say there's a world where it might be a staple at some point?
No, I was kind of thinking, I was like, it might be a playable over like Brainstorm, but I'm like, Brainstorm is just always 1 mana. And
I will play this in decks. I will not play Brainstorm.
I know you fucking hate Brainstorm, but that's you're just wrong. But last card on our list here is a card that Ian is being weird about. And I don't know why, and I'm intrigued to know why. And it's Leyline Axe. This is a artifact equipment that costs 4 generic mana. And it says, if this card is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample, and its equip is 3 generic mana. So what's
this
the deal?
Brings me to my new game show. Is it Arden or is it Farden? That's right. Is this card a piece of shit or is it an Arden inclusion? Cal, our resident Arden expert, tell me, would you play this equipment in your Arden deck, seeing as there's a reality where you can play and equip it for 0 mana?
No. Why would I play this?
'Cause 0, Cal. It's free.
Yes. At the beginning of the game.
Uh-huh.
And then it just sits there.
Yeah.
And then
here's Arden.
Yeah. But why do I want double strike?
Why wouldn't you want double strike?
I mean, I do, but usually with equipment in Arden, you want your equipment to do like something else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's where I'm like sitting here looking like you were not the first person who's asked me about this in Arden. And my response has always just been like, I mean, just play like sort of feast or famine.
And like for real, like there are decks I think that have like combat damage triggers, right?
Yeah.
Where you are very willing to pay 3 to like slap this on something. Like I know the Nashi deck that I just covered from last weekend, the brand new blue-black Nashi, which is a combat damage trigger and cares about your power scaling, right? Getting 2 triggers off of that is obviously incredibly powerful, right?
Yeah, so I think decks that care about like getting through this is really solid. Yeah. But like I look at this and I'm like, why wouldn't I just play what's the red equipment that has flash?
Embercleave?
Yeah, like I would just play Embercleave if I wanted this.
I'd probably play this before Embercleave, but I guess it depends on the deck. I'm thinking. I thought of Embercleave a lot in Paco and Halden. I feel like I played
Embercleave for me. like historically, rarely costs its full amount. Like,
it depends on the deck, right? As I said, like for me, I'm coloring.
Yeah, in Paco and Halden, I can see where it doesn't. I think this would be solid in Paco and Halden, but like, you know, like in Arden decks that like I play specifically, right? You know, I'm looking at like Arden, like thinking Arden Vial, Arden Crom. I'm like, I don't know, like, or even Arden Silas. Oh, maybe Arden Silas. That would be kind of
Arden Silas gets the double triggers, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, Arden Silas might be a little cute, but you know, like Arden Crom, I'm like, I mean, I guess. Like I feel it feels a little win more in Arden Crom to me. For sure. And like Arden Vial just straightforwardly. No, it's just that's not the game plan
what that deck does.
But you know, that is kind of cute with Arden Silas though. That is cute.
And Death Touch Trample obviously is an insane
Death Touch Double Strike Trample is pretty good. That's some stats. That Silas probably gets through. I would say.
I'm assuming mathematically that they would.
But that's our set review. You know, overall, like we kind of said this at the top of the show, where it's like it's not like a big like wowing set. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to blow your socks off or anything. But it's cool and interesting, and it has some neat stuff in it. And you know, like we got really excited about Niv. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, Ian got really excited about, you know, Electroduplicate.
Yes, I did.
Maybe you should get excited about Electroduplicate.
Like sort of that aggro. Yeah, maybe you should get excited.
Maybe you should stop shaming us for getting excited, and you should start being excited, viewer at home. Well, if people want to get excited with you.
Oh, well, phrasing. Jesus Christ, Cal.
If people want to be excited about cards with you, where can people do that? You know, they might get a little, you know, lesson in how they could improve with the cards. It'd be like an episode of Veggie Tales.
You're digging a hole. Please pull out.
Phrasing.
Hi, everybody. If you want to take that next step up in your cEDH
you really want to get deep into it.
Oh my God.
If you want to penetrate through the meta.
Oh my God. I'm a cEDH coach. If you need help and you want to take that next step up in your game, come find me. There's plenty of places. Cal's nice enough to link them and not nice enough to let me do this bit. ComedIan MTG at gmail.com is the easiest place to find me. Find me there. I'll happily give you a hand.
Sure, you will give them a hand.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm also working on new programming to also allow for people to basically affordably be able to continually like get coaching, because I realize that like that is a sustainability thing, and I'm hoping to provide that service for people. So yeah, that's also my one serious note about this bit.
you can subscribe to Ian's OnlyFans in the link down below.
No.
If you want to support the podcast, we greatly appreciate that. You can go over to patreon.com/the Mind Sculptors. Also, if you would leave us a little like and a comment and a subscription, we would greatly appreciate that from the viewers at home. I don't know why I started talking like a vampire.
Yeah, bold choice.
This has been the Mind Sculptors. I'm Cal.
I'm Ian. Bye.
Stay sculpty, everybody. We'll see you next week.